Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Hazel Adams. Thank you for joining me today. I don't have a lot of time to record today, but I did want to jump on and talk to you about a couple things. Specifically, the rumblings that we're experiencing in a very sort of literal way, the energetic shifts and movement that's going on in the solar system, in the Earth's crust, in society, and of course I know more about the U.S. than I do other societies because that's where I live, and sort of some of the things that are going on and why we're seeing them, and specifically sort of a possible timeline for the rending of the Earth's crust and the solar flash, because the two may be very connected. So I'll talk with you about those things. First of all, we are seeing, as you know, a lot of rumbling and movement in the Earth's crust. We're seeing it all around that ring of fire, all around the Pacific. We just had that huge 8.8 magnitude earthquake, which was very shallow and yet did not create a great big tsunami, very, just a little blip of a wave. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. We're having volcanoes become very active. It's been going on. They're getting more and more active on the Russian Peninsula and in Europe around Italy. The Earth's crust is definitely rumbling and moving. There's just no question about that. Meanwhile, we're having all kinds of rumblings and moving of cultural, societal concerns around the globe and very much in the U.S. As you know, so much information is trying to burble up and things are being hidden, and it's just kind of a crazy time. Times are not normal. There is nothing normal because we are shifting out of an old paradigm into a new. No, it's not normal. It's not going to be normal because we're done with that old normal. And we've seen some horrible, gut-wrenching murders, people being stabbed, families being murdered together, just a lot more craziness coming up. So let's talk about that. In the last video I posted just a day or two ago, the one entitled Lionsgate, the figure 8 energy, receiving, and how receiving is an action. I'll leave a link below. I talked very much about the energy of the figure 8, and I'll touch on that now. You can watch that video to get a little bit more in depth. But if you think about the actual shape of the figure 8, not only does that represent, of course, Lionsgate, August 8/8, 2025, but the actual shape is what I'm talking about here of 8. That is the shape of both integration and flow, and it is the shape of disintegration, kicking up and bringing up anything that does not belong in what you are integrating. So in that video I talked about, and I'll say again here, we are seeing that so much in our own lives. I'm sure you're seeing things, relationships, beliefs, expectations, attitudes burble up to where you can see them and see that they no longer fit, and they're burbled up and able to be released. You may be integrating or reintegrating parts of yourself that you had set aside, but are coming back into your attention of, hey, this feels joyful and authentic to me now. I used to be very interested in art, had some talent for it, took some watercolor classes, and painted some decent things for a person who's not an artist. And just recently I've been feeling like, gee, maybe I would like to start picking up paints again. I wonder if I ought to be maybe looking at acrylics. And of course, and I haven't clicked anything on YouTube or anything else to do with that subject whatsoever. It's just been here. Didn't I just sign into YouTube and see acrylic painting? So there you are. It's a synchronicity. It's your inner self saying, yeah, you're on the right path. Follow your joy. Anyway, back to the subject, the rumblings, the integration and the disintegration. There's a lot of energies coming in from our solar sun, as you may be aware. There's a lot of higher frequency energies coming from the cosmos, X-rays, gamma rays, giving us the updates and upgrades to our consciousness. Our consciousness is shifting, and we are very much the Earth's consciousness, and it is our consciousness, and what we experience it in the physical is going to reflect our consciousness, and therefore our own consciousness is shifting, getting rid of anything that isn't true source consciousness, and integrating everything that is our true source being as a collective and as individuals. So of course we're seeing it in the Earth's crust activity. Hence all the seismic activity, the earthquakes all over the place, rumblings all over the place where there wouldn't normally be. First of all, I want to reiterate something I've been saying and that the Arcturian Tia has said in those videos on GFL station, that we don't have to fear these things that are going on, these rumblings. These are not to punish us. These are not destructive. We will experience them. We create our own realities and we will experience them to the degree and the way that is right for us to experience it, individually and as a collective. And so, for instance, that big earthquake that took place, it didn't create a great big tsunami that everybody was waiting for 10-foot waves. It just created little blips of waves. Why? Because our consciousness, we're in a place where we're starting to not be so drama oriented and so bought into the negative. We're over that. We're moving into a place of just wanting to be what's true for us, which is love, joy, flow, creativity, enjoyment, abundance. We know in our hearts that's what's true for us. We know that's who and what we are. And we're starting to not even vibrate with the old drama scenario and paradigm. So these rumblings that are coming up are generally not going to create as bad a version as they would have been had we still been so bought into the death, destruction, apocalyptic. Most of us, the collective, the majority of the collective, is just no longer interested in that story. That's the word I'm going to use. We're not as interested in that stuff anymore. We experienced it. We know about it. We don't need to keep experiencing it and getting a lesson over and over. We're rising above it. So as I said in that video, in my video that I just mentioned, I do believe that Earth events, natural events, they'll still happen, but there'll be a gentler version of what they could have been and what we had originally thought they would be. And Tia actually just said something like that on a video that was just posted by GFL. It's called "This Was Always a Possibility," and then Arcturian Council of 5. And in the thumb, it says, jump to a higher timeline. Right, we're on a higher, gentler timeline. We don't need the death and destruction to teach us anymore. We're getting it. We're getting the lessons. Does that make sense? So the natural events that are happening are not only going to be gentler, kinder versions than they would have been, but I want to remind you that each of us creates our own reality, agrees to experience what we agree to experience for our own reasons, and that even if there are some more destructive events that come up, that doesn't mean most of us will choose to experience them that way or that directly. So that brings me to, I watched a little bit of an Ann Tucker video yesterday or the day before in which she channeled her angel guides, and they talked about the rending of the earth. Now, they've talked about this before, and they talked about it before in terms of it being a rending in the earth's crust somewhere maybe in the Indian Ocean between India and Africa, and it releasing a plume of noxious gases or something that affect a certain area, maybe sort of Eastern Europe going into Asia, that area. I don't know if that's what they're still saying, but what they did say in this video is that the rending of the earth will happen within a year from now. So in other words, between now and next summer. Now, first of all, no prediction is set in stone. Like everything and everyone else, they're seeing the strongest probabilities that are in our collective consciousness right now. They're not the only probabilities. They're the strongest. They're not definite predictions. But in any case, they said that will happen sometime between now and in a year. And they didn't say how destructive it would or wouldn't be. Interestingly, what they also said is that the solar flash event will take place after the earth is rent. Now, I respect and appreciate Ann Tucker and her angel guides. I don't take any channeling from anybody as 100% this is it and this is how it's going to be. I never do. I definitely respect and value what Ann Tucker's angel guides have to say. Another resource, I've said this, that I very much respect and value would be that Arcturian entity Tia on GFL station. Tia has said in other videos that we have risen so high in our vibration that we're really ready for that solar flash to happen any minute, any day, any week, any month. Like any time now, we're ready as a consciousness for that solar flash. We're there. So sort of putting the two together, what that tells me is sometime, whether it's today or tomorrow or 6 months from now, but within a year, there could be a big rending of the Earth's crust somewhere. And very soon after that, the solar flash event. Now, again, going back to what I just said, that doesn't mean it's this apocalyptic death and destruction event for everybody. Not at all. There are different probabilities. There are different timelines. Remember, timelines aren't about time exclusively whatsoever. They're about content. Which version are we vibrating with? What probability are we vibrating with? And as we rise, we're going to vibrate with gentler and gentler versions. So indeed, there may be a rending of the Earth's crust. And it may not do a lot of damage to a lot of people or property at all. It may change the crust of the Earth, the face of the Earth, but maybe not in a way that really doesn't do a lot of destruction to a lot of people. That's the main point. In another video about Yellowstone, Tia had said that, for instance, there are rumblings under Yellowstone and all the way up into Idaho. And, there's talk about, oh, is Yellowstone going to blow and, basically tear the American continent apart? Certainly that's a possibility and has been a possibility, as in a possible probability. However, Tia has said Yellowstone doesn't need to turn into this horrible cataclysmic event because our consciousness has risen above to where we need that, to where it's even reflecting who and what we are now. So we don't have to fear these events, you guys. Now, I don't doubt that there will be some kind of destruction in some way to some degree or another. And I don't doubt that some people will leave the planet. Whenever we leave, it's because we on some level agree to, want to, need to. So even when there are seemingly horrible events with suffering and death and destruction, I just want you to remember that these events are agreed to on some level. Do most people wake up and say, I think I'm ready to die today? Not usually. I think sometimes in some instances they kind of are aware, and that's why you hear those stories of, oh, my husband and I, we went for a hike on our favorite trail by the waterfall that day, and it was just so lovely and loving, and he gave me the most wonderful long kiss, and then that night he died. Well, right, he was not probably consciously aware he was ready to leave, but it was right there. It was right under his conscious awareness. So there's that. But then there's other times where, of course, did someone wake up thinking, oh, I think I'll go out and get murdered today? Of course not. Of course not. But a soul doesn't leave here, a spirit doesn't leave here unless they agree to, unless they are ready for some reason to. Maybe they feel they've completed the creativity that they could complete while they're here, and they feel like they've hit a brick wall and they don't want to be here anymore. Maybe they've had a lot of experiences and learned a lot of lessons and just decided, you know what? I don't need to keep on here in this body right now and keep doing it this way. I'm going to just start fresh. And of course, that normally wouldn't be at a conscious level sometimes. So I'm not saying that people decide to go get murdered today and suffer. But I do want you to understand that for their own reasons, they're showing up for that experience. And often, I'll say especially when there's some kind of a horrible event that had to do with, honestly, the greed and the nastiness and the destructiveness and hatred of people, people who were ready to leave for their own reasons will show up for an event and be a victim of an event so that their death means something, so that their death helps instruct and enlighten society and the culture going forward. I felt that very strongly around that Sand Creek massacre down in Colorado somewhere. I had seen a sign for Sand Creek massacre, and all of a sudden I had this vision of, oh yeah, all those people that died in the Sand Creek massacre, the indigenous people, they had their own individual reasons. Maybe they didn't want to be here anymore where the white man was taking over their land and raping and pillaging, whatever. Maybe they were just done with their creativity. All the individuals would have had their own reasons, but their participation in the event, didn't it show us that this is not who we want to be. This is not what we want. This is not okay. This kind of pillage, destructive energy is not what we want our country to be built on going forward. Their death meant something. It illustrated something for us as a culture, as a society. I would say the same thing about some of these mass shootings where everybody's attending an event, some kind of a music event, be it Israel or Las Vegas or wherever. Those people, for their own reasons, were ready to go out, were ready to leave, and they agreed to participate in an event that could show us all what is not okay, what we don't want. If there is a big rending in the Earth's crust where people pass away, it won't be about, of course, people with their cruelty and destroying other people and making other people suffer. But it will be people ready to leave. And honestly, for all I know, there's a possibility some of them, very highly evolved, sort of want to go out with a bang. Like, hey, I was there for it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but honestly, we have a friend in Hawaii, and he's a little different. I think he might be undiagnosed, maybe on the spectrum, maybe Asperger's or something. But I was talking to him and saying, I was looking at that Kealakekua Bay where this ginormous sheer cliff, part of the island fell off and fell into the depths of the sea. And it's the void, it's the depths of the sea there. And there's a fracture there on the island where more could fall off. And I said, oh my golly, that would be horrible. He said, yeah, but wouldn't you like to be here for it? And of course my answer was, no. But that just shows you, someone thinks that would be really cool to be there and participate in that. So I'm just saying it is possible that on some level, some people would very deliberately participate in one of those cataclysmic events for that experience because they're ready to leave anyway, and they know they're fine. They know they're not being harmed. They're not afraid on some level. So back to things being stirred up that don't belong, things that do belong being integrated, and then that whole sort of suffering and fear theme. So on that note, those poor people who were stabbed on the hiking trail, the family that was murdered, and there have been others that have been stabbed and murdered here just recently too, do understand, even as we hold the compassion for what they went through and compassion and condolences for the people that are left here to know that that's what they went through, that on some level they were ready to leave the planet and they agreed to participate for their own reasons. And I'm not going to even try to go into the reasons of the exact people involved. But for their own reasons, they agreed to participate in leaving that way, and their deaths highlight for us what is not okay, what is not part of us anymore going forward. Part of the reason that these are coming up is so that we can see more and more what the being out of flow with source and love and unity, what that really looks like and what it can turn into. We're seeing the unacceptability of that, the horror of it, that this is not to be tolerated anymore. This does not belong here. An analogy I used in my last video is, here's this big black dead fly in your whipped cream. It doesn't belong here anymore. But it's coming up because our consciousness is raising so much into love and unity and kindness and cooperation and, sort of just that joy and abundance, also positive, that anyone that isn't vibrating in that is not able to be here anymore. And my husband said that exact thing to me a couple of days ago. He said, we're moving into such a high vibration that the people that aren't there simply cannot be there. They're snapping and they're going out and just flailing. That's what the darker energy is doing right now. And darkness is not an energy. It's a turning away from the love and the light and the joy and the abundance and creativity, all that is positive, that is source. And it simply is not going to be able to exist in this more rarefied, energetic atmosphere that we are creating. So the picture I'm getting energetically, not only about these people popping up and murdering people, but also on the sort of geopolitical stage and on the US political stage, I'm seeing the negative trauma, drama, fear, struggle, greed, power, that whole paradigm of being literally disintegrating, breaking up, like it did have sort of a hold, if you will, as a consensus reality that we had agreed to. No one imposed it upon us. I have to talk about that in a moment. But this sort of consensus reality of that's how it is, it's literally dissolving and breaking up. It can't hold anymore. So any of those kind of events, they can't take a toehold anymore. And that's why the tsunami fizzled out. That's why when Iran and Israel had that conflict that could have turned into just something horrible overnight, it fizzled. Negative things are fizzling because they cannot gain purchase now in our new higher vibration paradigm. Think of maybe a petri dish, a medium where it's got certain nutrients in it. If you're trying to grow something that cannot thrive there, it may come up in little patches, it may try, but it can't take hold. It can't hold what it's got because the environment does not support it. Our energetic environment is not supporting the negativity, the hatred, the trauma drama, the power over others, the greed, the control structure. We collectively and individually are not energetically supporting that anymore, which is why all of these events are going to start to minimize and go down in their destructive ability. And where things need to be exposed, that figure eight energy, and where things need to rise to the surface so that we can look at them and say, you don't belong here, you're not part of us anymore, so we can see and let those go as well from our paradigm. Tia said it beautifully in that video that I mentioned, and I will leave a link below for that, that this consensus paradigm, this limitation, was self-chosen. Do not believe anybody that tells you that this stuff is being imposed upon us and we're being held in jail. No, we are not. We create our own reality. We agreed to be part of this paradigm that previously has been about limitation and lack. And again, Tia said this beautifully in that last video, that we agreed to be part of it so that we could have certain experiences that we needed and wanted, so we could learn certain things that we needed and wanted to learn. Now we're all moving to where we got it. We don't need those lessons anymore. So we're moving into a higher paradigm where it's not about lack and fear and limitation, but joy and freedom. We're literally moving into a new, higher version of the human species of consciousness. And another thing that Tia said in that video, and that I have said in my last two videos, is that you do not have to make this ascension happen. It's just happening. We're all going there as a collective. We're all showing up for it at our own pace, in our own way. You don't have to do anything to make the shift happen. You don't have to force it. That's the word she used. You don't have to do anything to force it. All you need to do is, to the best of your ability, constantly agree to show up, to intend, to allow yourself to show up for the positive expectation, the joy, the love, the abundance, that your needs will be met, that you can just flow and be in joy and creativity. Being in that space is exactly how you anchor yourself in the higher timeline, and it's how you anchor that higher timeline for the collective. I will leave the links to my two videos in which I go into some of these things, especially that figure eight energy, as well as receiving and receivership, and how that is not a passive thing, it's an action. I go into a lot more detail in the last two videos I posted. I'll put the cards up on the screen for you so you can just click there. I'll also put links to them in the description below, and I'll include a link to that Tia video below. Also, I'll invite you to join me for this Sunday's live spirit talk. That is Sunday, August 10th at noon Eastern via Zoom. I do a group live talk. I don't have the exact topic yet because the topic, or topics plural, are given to me sort of right before the talk, and then it always just flows beautifully as to what we need to talk about as a group. So if you want more information or to register for that, I'll leave a link below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to click like, subscribe, leave your comments and questions. I read and answer every one, and have a most blessed day.